Hello, you're watching TVP World Talks. I'm Ilan Shrabiński. As the countdown to the upcoming NATO summit in Ankara continues, uncertainty lingers over how the alliance will handle the massive changes that lie ahead. With the US administration pushing for what they call NATO 3.0, a new formula for the alliance, European allies are scrambling to meet ambitious spending targets and wondering if Russia could see the potential resulting gap in defense capabilities as a window of opportunity for military adventurism of its own. Joining us here today is İlkan Dalkuç, director at Daktilo 1984. Hello and welcome to TVP World.
Always good to be here.
Right, so some commentators say NATO is at its weakest right now. Others say that it is in fact growing ever stronger, especially with the increasing spending in Europe. What is your take on this?
I guess NATO is rekindling its commitment and its functionality in this changing times, because as we see the recent developments in the Ukrainian front, NATO finds itself a new kind of perspective, because after Donald Trump's re-election, we may lot of people actually saw some inconsistencies or some sort of some difficulties in the Ukrainian front. But after the Ukrainian resolve and determination, we see the rekindling of NATO and re-emerging of NATO's commitment, because we will see some new perspectives and new areas to strengthen the partnership and alliance between NATO members in this upcoming summit.
Well, of course, there are signals from the United States that they will be not quite as militarily involved as they used to be. The number of combat brigade groups is about to decrease. There will be some forces that will be pulled out and will no longer be available in the case of emergency. So do you think that, judging by what the European countries are doing today, are they up to the task? Do you think that NATO 3.0 is becoming reality?
I guess they are up to the task, because we all know that United States is also needs Europe, because if United States definitely leave Europe out, we cannot put United States as a world leader. When you omit Europe, when you omit United States commitments in Europe off the table, you cannot see United States as a world leader or some kind of a superpower. You will see United States just a local Atlantic power. It will just become some sort of a local power, but without Europe. United States needs Europe, because we just witnessed United States operation in Iran, for example, United States operation in Mediterranean, in Middle East, United States commitments in regarding Russia. All of them needs Europe's support and Europe's determination. And even if the lack of support from United States, Ukraine can actually stand against Russia, and this certainly only this can prove Europe can stand alone, stand without the support of United States, so that United States will continue its support and its position in NATO. Maybe the situationship, maybe the nature of this support will change. Maybe the positions of countries will change. But in the end, in general stance will remain same.
But you said Europe could potentially stand its ground against Russia. But do you think that the crucial difference here is that Ukraine has substantially changed the way in which it basically is approaching this military confrontation? The weapons development system, for example, the entire framework has become decentralized. It is based on incentives. It is based on private enterprises. The substantial reduction of bureaucracy as well. Do you think that European NATO countries countries have been lagging behind in this regard, still procuring weapons contracts in the old-fashioned way that could prove to be too slow in the event of any sort of confrontation. Unlike Ukraine, which basically has turned this into an advantage.
Actually, you are totally right, because Ukraine turned itself into a weapons manufacturer and weapons supplier, some kind of a pioneer in the military technology. In fact, Europe has the capacity, has the economy, has the strategic depth to do that also within itself. But Europe is as always. Suffering itself from suffering its bureaucracy, suffering its problems within itself as partners, because this kind of this kind of military infrastructure needs to be procured within a certain time frame. Europe is lagging that time frame. Actually, a lot of countries need those weapons as soon as possible. But in European. In the European Union's commitments, they are lagging behind this kind of time frames. It is a certain issue. On the other hand, Europe can solve this issue, but it lacks some kind of determination on that ground.
So during the summit, do you expect more strong signals from the US concerning especially countries that have been failing to meet those obligations? I mean, there is a mandatory spending target of 5% GDP. Many countries are still not doing this. Some of them saying they are not going to do this within the foreseeable future. Do you think that this obligation will be reinforced? Perhaps also with further threats that if some NATO members are not doing what they should, then the US might actually reconsider its approach to those particular members of the alliance.
I mean, we will definitely see this kind of reaffirmation of this military spending target. But other than that, in the optimistic side, we will certainly see some new agreements within this military commitments. We will definitely see some new commitments in Ankara. I'm pretty certain about it. I mean, we will definitely see some new military procurements agreements, this kind of stuff. We will see it in the Ankara summit. Definitely, there are signals about it, and we will definitely see some new grounds on partnership, because as you mentioned before, we are witnessing some new threats from Russia. We are witnessing some new kind of threats from Mediterranean, from Middle East, and this new situation actually reaffirms the need of military spending throughout Europe, and we will see some changes within European governments. So that I am on the optimistic side of this kind of debate.
Now, Turkey itself has often been the subject of debate as well, because some people say, well, Turkey has this unique position, being able to engage diplomatically with countries like Russia, despite being a NATO member. But others are asking questions. What if there is some sort of regional conflict? How would Turkey respond? Would it still try to position itself as a mediator, or would it send a substantial military contribution to an armed response to a possible Russian incursion? What do you think?
Actually, Turkey used to position itself on the middle ground between Europe and Russia, but passing times, Turkey reaffirmed its commitments within NATO and within Europe, because other than the Turkey's partnership with Russia about, for example, energy grant, about, for example, military grant as S-400 systems and so forth, Turkey has also strong connections and strong partnerships within the Western countries, and with our upcoming Ankara summit, we will see the reaffirmation of Ankara's commitments with Russian with NATO countries, I don't want to be over optimistic, or I don't want to say something that not concrete, but Turkey will position itself with NATO and with West in the end eventually, but Turkey cannot and will not be a willing willing partner to confront Russia directly. Turkey will position itself next to the West, but Turkey won't choose to confront Russia directly, because in the end, Turkey is a neighbor of Russia. Turkey has some different levels of connections and different levels of partnership with Russia also. So that Turkey has its own problems, and Turkey has also its own commitments with Russia. For example, in Caucasus, in Middle East, in the Black Sea region, Turkey has its own problems with Russia. So that Turkey will stand next to West, but don't choose to confront Russia directly.
Well, also looking at it from a different angle, Turkey was a country that responded forcefully to an incursion by a Russian fighter jet, shooting it down and earning Russia's respect. So do you think that perhaps this is also a lesson to be learned by other NATO members, that they should not shy away from using force when necessary?
Actually, Turkey confronts Russia in Libya, in Syria, in Caucasus with force, with military commitments. And this kind of military commitments don't make Turkey more fragile to Russia. On the contrary, since Russia using all its military powers on the Ukrainian grounds, so that Russia withdraws from Turkey's strategic positions in the last couple of years, as we all know that. So that strategic resolve against Russia is the most suitable way to confront the Russian aggression. It's basic and it's very simple when you're looking from Turkey's perspective.
İlkan Dalkuç was our guest today here on TVP World. Thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your insight.
Oh, that's good to be here, sir.
And I'm Nash Ravinsky. You're watching TVP World. Please do stay with us.